Support WrestleTalk.
Saturday night's all right for title defenses. All right. I am Luke Owen, DAD, and I'm joined by the Professor, the Truth, your soon-to-be former Jam That Champion, as coming this Saturday, where I'm going to take that title away from him at our Crown Jewel live party. Please do subscribe to the WrestleTalk Podcast channel before we review AEW Collision. Give us a little thumbs up button as well. If you're watching on demand, get your comments in down below into the comment section. If you're watching live, join the live discourse and get your thoughts in on this episode. But if you want your question, statement, or thoughts read out on the air, WrestleTalk.com/support. We'll read out all of them above the $5 amount. Dan, you look like you're about to try and interject and say something, I'm no doubt cutting ahead of your title loss this coming Saturday.
Not cutting so much as I've just noticed you've started to put my title on the floor on your side of the desk.
Well, it's just,
I'd like it.
I'm getting it ready.
Get it for me.
I mean, the question more, Dan, is why don't you have it already? Because surely, as the champion, you want to proudly display the fact that you're the champion, as opposed to just leaving it on the floor.
Shall I get it back like MJF?
Yeah, some absolute disrespect.
Hold on. We got it.
Yeah.
I could just.
Yeah.
It's not the best bit I could have done, but it's mine now. That's better.
That's being, finally, the title being treated with some care and respect.
Get out of town.
Speaking of...
I took it on an international tour to my house.
Speaking of title defenses, this episode of Collision had a very, very big title defense on it, which was MJF defending the AEW World Championship against Kenny Omega, looking to beat Kenny Omega's reign as longest reigning champion, while Omega was looking to unseat MJF and retain his thread of that. And they just had a corking, cracking little match that has basically been, I think, has been summed up by the online discourse as that is an all-time AEW TV match, an all-time AEW World Championship match. I wish it had a bit longer to get excited for it.
Well, it's so interesting because I saw someone else say that it has essentially had like over 600 odd days of build, by which I assume they mean Kenny's reign plus MJF's reign. And I actually really vibe with the whole you're about to break my record, so I'm going to try and stop you thing. We saw it with A New Day and the Usos, which I think we all knew how probably both of these were going to end. I think no one was like wondering whether Kenny would get it back. But it adds that little bit of like, oh, are we really going to do this? And what is it going to do? And in this case, I think it really solidified MJF's run. Do you know what I mean? I think his run has been amazing already for a number of reasons. The Cole storyline, the All-In main event. But at times, especially during the era of like Blood and Guts and Anarchy in the Arena, it was the semi-main event rather than the main event. The Four Pillars four-way didn't quite live up to it. But then at the same time, it had the dog collar, it had the Iron Man, it had all of these things. And then when,
The dog collar wasn't a title match.
Was it not?
No, that was the Punk match last Revolution.
Oh, either way. Yeah, they had the Iron Man match. You can't take that away from me. But then...
The All-In main events. And
exactly, which you know, as an emotional, cathartic storyline was, you know, one of the highlights of the year. So... For all of it to be said, when JR does sum up the show at the end of Collision, being like, that is one of the best TV main events you're ever going to see, kind of thing, that is the perfect summation of it. I
was so excited for this match. I've seen the disc, and I kind of agree. Like Ollie made this point in the edited review he did of Dynamite. It's like, I'm so excited for this match, I can't even be annoyed that it's only 3 days notice before the match is happening. I think you could possibly make the argument. Really, it was 10 because they basically set it up on the Dynamite previous.
Well, didn't he whisper 13 days?
Exactly, yeah. So MJF and Omega told you this match was going to happen 2 weeks ago, and then it happened. But they announced it with 3 days ahead of time. So I totally get it from that aspect of it. But I love the setup for it. It reminds me of Okada Tanahashi, because like when we did that the Dynamite episode when he did the 13 days bitch, I said to him, I was like, I think they'll do MJF Omega before Full Gear, so you can within the next 13 days, so you can have the Tanahashi Okada match where Okada is looking to beat Tanahashi's reign of most title defenses against the man who holds that record, who's looking to win back the title and do something really, really cool around that. And cool they did, because I loved this match. I was so excited for this match. I watched this, as I'm sure Tony Khan, MJF, and Omega intended, on my phone while I was cutting my hair in the shower.
What? Walk me through. What? First of all, where was the phone? How are you keeping it safe? Second of all, what? What hair?
So on Saturday morning, I got up. Or Sunday morning, I got up, and I was just so excited about this match. I was like, I'm not going online. I don't want to see a single thing about this, but I'm not sure if I can last out the whole day. I'll find out somehow. So I'll bump into someone and they'll say something. So this happened to us on Wednesday.
Oh yeah.
On Wednesday, you and I were shooting Cineworld, and I accidentally spoiled for you. So
the main event of NXT Halloween Havoc Night 1, I was super excited for it, and I hadn't. This is a rare thing for us in the UK because we can't generally, especially when we have early morning shoots like we did on that day, we can't watch them live. We can't watch them as is. Sometimes
we were on a super duper early shoot because it was half term. Yeah, we had to film it, get everything filmed before 10 because that's when the cinema opens.
So that experience of, and I'm firmly under the belief of, if you go online, you'll see a spoiler, and it's not a spoiler if it's a bit of live sport or live entertainment. It's already happened.
Exactly.
I can kind of give you a day's grace period if it's like a TV show, but also at the same time, it's on you then to not go on the internet because there be spoilers. We had someone comment on, I gave a list of the 10 best US title matches, and number one of that list was, it was Magnum TA versus Tully Blanchard in NWA in 1985 or something like that. And they were like, it's a shame you give away spoilers for these matches because what if we want to experience them for the first time? And I was like, it's 40, 50 years old. What are you talking about?
Bruce Willis is a ghost.
You're just going to say it.
I think at this point, we're all past that.
So you've got to try and avoid seeing it online. And on this particular occasion for NXT, I hadn't. I had been not online. I'd not been paying attention. I'd actively been avoiding it. My whole plan that evening was to go home. We had the Wednesday Night War. I was going to go home and watch it. And then Luke, in a moment of quiet, while we're setting up the next shot, just goes, hey, did you see Lyra Valkyria won the belt last night? I was like, no, I didn't.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
It's fine.
I felt so bad about it.
It's all right.
But that's what I was worried about.
Yes.
I was worried that I would, bump into someone and be like, oh, did you see the match? Because MJF won clean. I'm like, no.
Or Omega got the belt back somehow.
Yeah, exactly. So I was trying to avoid it. So I had to go, I was going to a Halloween party with the kid. So I went to go get ready. I went to go cut my hair and have a shower and get myself dressed and ready and this, that, and the other. And I started shaving my head in the shower. So I just propped it up on top of the water temperature control bit, the console.
Brave.
Put it up on there while I was just shaving my head, and I watched the match while I was cutting my hair, and then while I was having a shower, then while I was getting ready for a Halloween party, exactly as MJF and Omega intended.
I'm actually impressed, given because I was. I'm you know me. I'm a very physically involved watcher of wrestling. A lot of wow. Yeah. I'm surprised you haven't got any cuts and nicks because it was a lot.
Well, I'm there cutting my hair, and then MJF does a bloody Fosbury flop over
about.
the top rope, and I was like, "Whoa!"
Or that powerbomb on the knee, like Jesus.
Yeah. So I watched it again this morning, so I could just watch it because I wanted to see it again because Hot Dogs was good, and I love the story of this match, which is that Omega was trying to keep up with MJF early doors. He was trying to sort of out wrestle him, but MJF is younger. He is more on his game than Omega currently is. Yeah. So he was stopping him at every turn. So Omega then felt like, all right, actually I need to change up my strategy here. What I need to do is go back to my cleaner ways. So it's snapdragons on the apron. It's the powerbomb through the table. It's more vicious V triggers because this is a way for me to put this kid down. And that's not enough either. And then it looks like, hey, I'm going to get set for the One-Winged Angel. Don't know whether or not he was going to be able to hit it or not. And Don Callis shows up. And he looks at him. And at that point, you can almost tell Omega knows that he's not going to win this match. Because you're like,
that's a really good point.
I can't win while you're still around. I will never be the top guy of this company or the top champion of this company while you're still in my life. Because it's not like Callis interfered, Callis got involved. He was just a presence. And it's at that point there, you can almost see the look in Omega's eyes where it's like, oh, I can try, but A, this kid is stronger than me, this kid is quicker than me, and you're here. I don't know if I can win this. And even then, he had that incredible 2.99 near count. Yeah. Someone actually timed it out. It's 2.93 seconds.
Amazing. Oh my God.
Before MJF kicks out.
That's brilliant.
It's an insane near fall.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's MJF that gets the win. Basically clean as a sheet. And it is clean as a sheet. Like, you could argue the Don Callis interaction muddies the water somewhat, but more or less, he won clean as a sheet in what was just an stellar main event.
It's almost like I want to jump off every single one of the points you make and dive into them, and that's what makes this job so fun. Is like, you know, Ollie was. I have my ups and downs with Collision, partly because it's like it's a really fun wrestling show. There's a lot of great wrestling on there, but there's not often loads to talk about. But when you get something like this, there is loads to talk about, and it just makes me really want to get in the studio and chat about it. So many different elements of what you just said. The age thing, that this kid is younger than me, he's quicker than me. There was the moment where they both did the double nip up, and Kenny slipped, and I don't think that was planned. It maybe was, maybe I'm just being naive, but it suckered me in. And if it wasn't planned, way to turn that into a story beat,
because they played up on it.
Exactly.
And Omega basically was like, I missed that.
Yeah.
The kip up, and MJF looked at me like, you missed it.
And it adds a little spice, a little extra flavor to that. So as you say, then he turns on it and makes it go even more into the cleaner style, into that sort of more vicious style. There was a bunch of smart wrestling all the way from the beginning. You know, MJF turning the leapfrog spot into a quick pin, which that for me is this is what I look for in wrestling. It's my favorite style. We all have our favorite styles. Some people, you know, like the kind of all bells and whistles, smoke and mirrors, hardcore violence. Some people like flippity-doos. Some people love the Mexican style. Some people love the strong style.
Some people like the Roman Reigns jaw-jacking. The slow, methodical, look at me as I do this.
This is what I love. I love the technical chain wrestling, the stuff that is taking opportunities to tell a good story in the middle of it, where the wrestling holds are crisp and clean. I loved everything about it. And I kept just thinking to myself while I'm watching this, MJF is like a generational talent. Like, he understands. He's done this amazing thing of taking his heel character and making it a babyface without changing the character, but like also evolving in front of our eyes, which we don't really see that often in wrestling. They go through a change, right? MJF has almost grown up in front of us in a weird way, and you know, to still be doing your biting spot. I don't love a biting spot, but fine, whatever. Doing it. The kangaroo stuff to play up to the crowd as well, which is all just, it's so dumb, but it kind of works.
It's over.
But then you get such amazing things like there was the buckle bomb that turned into a lariat. Like, I just, full of it. I loved it. And for me, there's two elements to the idea of the Don Callis interference, which I was really cross at the Don Callis interference in the match against Ospreay. And I'm not as angry about it here. And I think that's why I also don't really mind about the 3-day build. Because yes, it's a clean win. And what that clean win does, just to finish this point, is I feel fully legitimize MJF as AEW World Champ. But also, it was not clean because Callis distracted Omega, took away that verve, that energy that may have carried Omega through against this younger competitor. So at some point, we can tell the story again of if he hadn't have come down, I reckon I could have got you. And they can have another build. They can have, I mean, also you can run matches back. Like, this was amazing. Tell me you don't want to see another one. Tell me you don't want to see another one with a massive build. Like, I think there's a lot of opportunity to tell a bunch of stories here. And you're right, the story with Callis just isn't over yet. He's not going to be able to get back to the top of the mountain until he's dealt with it, until he's got him out of the way. Meanwhile, there was an unpopular opinions thread going around, and someone's was that CM Punk is like still the legitimate world champion or something like that. And in case there are people who do feel that way, who do, you know, have this opinion that MJF is the best of a bad situation or whatever, this, I feel, fully legitimizes him. He beat the longest reigning. He beat Kenny Omega, who in many ways is Mr. AEW, in a brilliant contest with a wrestling hold, not with shenanigans. He even actually was the one put through the table.
Yeah.
So
they pulled this great story out of a match that had 3 days build.
Yeah.
Imagine what they can do with the rematch.
And if that ain't the Tony Khan way, though, that's my thing, where Tony Khan is a great matchmaker versus a booker. Like, he puts together incredible matches. and does it with aplomb. Kind of hard not to when you have a roster this, stacked. But imagine what you could do if you did. And this was the frustration with All In. This was the frustration with Forbidden Door, although that first one, injury blighted and all the rest. It's that thing of, these are all great. Now I want the juice. The reason the MJF Adam Cole story is so good is because of all the juice going into it. Even the Jay White element has, although that's been kind of mazy and hazy and they haven't really seen each other, and I had issues with what was going on in this show with Jay White and MJF, it's at least been like this story kind of thing. There's a reason for me to want to see them clash. That's what I want more from, and they did it so well for the first few years.
I'm so curious about this coming Wednesday show as well, because it's MJF versus Bullet Club Gold with three mystery partners have yet to be announced. And I pitched to Ollie this idea of it being the contenders. So it's Omega, Wardlow, and Joe. This trio, like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I mean, if it's the Acclaimed, that's also great. If it's the Kingdom and Roddy, that's kind of fascinating because that is Roderick Strong trying to worm his way into MJF's like good graces and stuff. There's some really good options that you could have with this. And the MJF character I find to be a fascinating thing, not just in terms of what is happening on screen, but what that sort of means business-wise. Dynamite didn't do a great number last week. It had a big drop-off, like a 14% drop-off from the week previous. And that had, Sting being given a gift, which turned out to be Ric Flair, which would be one of those things of like, hey, have you seen Ric Flair's on the... you need to switch over to Dynamite now. Switch on over to TBS. You call your friends, this and the other. But looking at the quarter hours of that is the most telling thing you need to know about AEW as a product at the moment. And that is, everyone was tuned in for the MJF stuff. And the second that stopped, 30% tuned out. Like, it is literally like, WrestleNomics have got the quarter hour breakdown. And it is...
shame you can't put that on screen because it's fascinating.
It's, 982,000 people were tuned in for the first quarter. Once the MJF stuff stops, 752,000. That's like 200,000 plus people tuning out after the MJF stuff is finished, because there's still like, 750,000 people that are still interested in this show. And it does pick up when you have the Flair reveal, and then drops off again for the women's match, then picks back up for Okada coming out. But it's the MJF stuff is the high point. And, you could look at those ratings and be like, it was the basketball, you could do the Avi Arad thing. It was like, well, people don't go out and see Daredevil on opening weekend because we had bad weather. You could blame the news and things like that. And all those are factors. But that is so telling. Brian Alvarez made this point. Just like, that is so many people tuning out at once.
Yeah.
That is what you need to know about MJF as a business. He is the hot thing in AEW right now, in this MJF-verse, which is good because it's sprawled out into so many different camps. It's got Bullet Club Gold, it's got Wardlow, it's got Joe, it's got Kenny Omega, and now Don Callis. And he can, like, Ollie puts this, they can maximize those by using MJF's drawing ability.
And then through the show, like to make it that's not the segment and now it's over, you stick through it. Yeah, I agree with that completely.
I thought it was such a great match. I can't wait for them to do it again. And I think they've got some really good legs to build up from this. I'm so excited to see what Omega's doing next with Don Callis. We'll get into the Bullet Club Gold stuff because they opened this show. But I'm stoked for the match that they've got at Full Gear in November. And I love that MJF's last date with the company before the contract ends in 2024 is on a pay-per-view called World's End in his hometown. I'm so stoked to find out what that is going to be. Someone made a point, I know we had an Ultra Chat point this out on Dynamite Show. MJF Wardlow, because it's Wardlow's world, and he's going to end the world for MJF. I think some nice imagery you can build around that.
I mean, it's going to lead to some discourse, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, in fact, actually, MJF did have his post-show promo with Kenny Omega, which had been loaded up by AEW, and he was just like, "Look, I haven't signed my contract." I think he probably has.
I mean, I don't see why. Although technically, we're maybe in a different era of wrestling now, because we saw with Edge and Jade Cargill, both of them got pretty positive send-offs on the way out of the company. I don't see why he would be put in this position if he wasn't likely to be re-signing.
it's the Will Ospreay argument of like, this is a company that has rolled out the red carpet for Will Ospreay throughout the year, gave him the All-In match, gave him the big Forbidden Door match, presented him well on TV, and so basically to be Tony Khan being like, well, like, your contract's up next year if you come here. Look what we've just given you when you're a freelancer. Imagine what will happen if you come in on a full-time basis, trying to sort of draw him in. Whereas, like, you know, you got TNA trying to like lure him in, was like, we can give you Speedball Mike Bailey, and you know, all these other, Josh Alexander, we can give you Alex Shelley and all this great stuff. And WWE being like, we're the hot ticket.
WWE.
We're WWE. We're the hot product right now. You want to come in here and have a match with Seth Rollins for WrestleMania? Let's do it.
You want to think about your career outside the ring? We've got all of these contacts. Like, there's so many but this is why it's so important that the wrestling industry is as good as it is, because for any of these guys to have options, like for Kenny to think about maybe going to WWE and then deciding he wanted to re-sign, for Cody to be able to be like, right, I've reached an impasse here. I'm kind of done with what I can do here. I want to go over here. With Jade wanting to, you know, do all the things that she wanted to do over in WWE. Jay White having all those opportunities. MJF can look at this and go, do I want to make a splash at the Royal Rumble? I mean, MJF's so young. Do I want to continue building my legacy here in AEW? Do I want to go and take a shot on this upstart TNA and the company? Like, this is why I don't like the tribalism. I don't want to subscribe to the tribalism, the idea that one has to be better, that one has to win, the idea that, like, I delight when this team is doing badly, or I'm thrilled to see that we're trouncing you in the ratings or whatever. I don't love all of that stuff. I think it's interesting, but I much prefer it when we've got a healthy ecosystem, because it ultimately benefits everybody.
I brought this up a couple of times now across the last few months, but I look at 97 and Rick Rude. Rick Rude's in ECW, and then 3 months later he's in WCW, and then 2 months later, WWF, and then like 3 months later he's in WCW. Yeah. It's just like, whoa, like, where's he going to show up next? Like, Raven was the champion of ECW in April. By June he's gone to WCW, and then he's there for a couple of years, and he goes back to ECW, and then he's there for a couple of years, and he goes back to and he goes to WWF. Like this, I find that thing very, very interesting. It keeps people fresh as well for most things. But the point I was going to make about MJF, he said in the post-show promo, I still have not made my decision on what I'm doing. But matches like this and getting to be in the ring with Kenny Omega sure does make it feel like, you know, that I've the choice to make is staying here.
I mean, yeah, because look. And look at the crowd. And can I talk quickly before we go into the ultra? Can I talk quickly about the crowd?
Please do.
Because we've talked about a lack of attendance to Collision, especially a lack of attendance to AEW across the board. And I was just doing some reading, because especially in the opening match, there was a big crane shot which showed a pretty packed, you know, audience. And I was curious and I wanted to do some reading. And the Mohegan Sun Arena is a 10,000 capacity stadium. When you add the stage, if you wanted to use the full arena, it's probably 8,000. AEW configured it for 4,000 and sold 3,500 odd tickets. The top tier, if you looked, was topped off, and that says to me that they're using half the arena, which when I saw Steve Coogan at the O2, he did the same thing. And I don't want that to be like, well, they're not selling that many tickets. What I'm trying to say is the energy of the crowd of the production made it look rammed and really passionate. And I think they deserve a ton of credit for it, because we have spoken like about it not being a hot product, it being a hot product. Perception is, you know, as much a part of it as anything.
You need to show on TV, this is a hot ticket.
Yeah.
Present it like it is a hot ticket.
So when you have a match like this that you're telling us is really important because it's the longest reign versus the current champ, it's a marquee match, you need it to look great. And it looked great. And I really want to praise them for it, because that's what you should be doing more of.
And I think it's one thing that AEW have struggled with over the last 4 years sometimes is that production, where they've had packed houses. They've had like sold out houses, you know, back in those days when they were easily selling out 8,000 seat venues, and it didn't sound like there were 8,000 people there. They were making noise in the buildings. We had people that were actually being like, it was loud as all get out. But it didn't translate into TV.
Yeah,
we had that with a show on Raw recently. Someone like messaging in, being like, "We were really loud in our section, but it did not translate onto TV because they hadn't mic'd up, or you know, the production wasn't there, or actually was just their section was loud and everyone else was quiet. Who knows what it actually could have been? But yeah, no, I thought they really did make this sound like a big building, and a big crowd. Let's get into what you thought of this, and not the San Martino kicks things off to say, long time listener, first time caller. I was at Collision, MJF Omega rocked the house, and the promo after the show was amazing. I feel the issue with AEW selling tickets is their advertisement. I only found out about the show 3 weeks in advance. Something United about the show before, this idea that they don't do a lot of local advertising, and that's one of their big stumbling blocks.
It's like Apple TV Plus. They have so many amazing shows and films, but they just don't tell you about them. So how are you supposed to find them?
Yeah. Matt Hennessy here says, "Well, I wish there was more build for MJF rather than just 3 days. The match was awesome and it absolutely slapped. MJF is the best world champion AEW has ever had. I never thought anyone could beat Kenny's run as champion, but MJF has." One of the things I really love about MJF, and I've talked about this throughout the year, particularly during the Takeshita match that he had when he was back still being a heel, and Takeshita was a babyface, was that one of my favorite things about MJF as a wrestler is he can do all of the flashy stuff that your favorite wrestlers do if you're into that style.
He just doesn't.
He just doesn't do it because he's a heel. This is what people used to have a popper Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins for. And actually AJ Styles used to get this a lot as well, and Kenny would get it, and a few of these other types of wrestlers. Like, you're a baddie. Why are you doing moves that get reactions and get people cheering? Because surely the whole point is you want people to boo you as a heel.
Jericho changing his whole gimmick.
Yeah. And so MJF, he can do all of this. He did a Fosbury flop during this match.
He really did that.
He can literally do it. Like Cash Wheeler, during that first Young Bucks match, does a springboard 450 splash perfectly. He could do that in every match, but he doesn't because he's a baddie, and you're not supposed to. Also, his gimmick is all flips. Sorry, all fists, no flips. So MJF has been able to do this stuff forever, but as a baddie was like, but I'm not going to because I want people to boo me. But now he's a babyface. He can just show me like, oh yeah, by the way, I can do all of this stuff.
I remember on Dynamite, or it might have been Collision, he did a Tope Suicida and got a holy S chant.
Yeah.
Like, because he just doesn't do it. And it is that thing of like, you know, the whole super kick party, the joke about Shawn Michaels' finish being respected, like that the clip with him and Taker and Triple H is very funny. But it is one of those things where if you use things too much, it loses its power. That's what I mean by smart wrestling. Being really clever with what you're doing and why. I love it.
Bizarro Big L said, "I'm glad I bought a last-minute ticket. MJF ran in front of my seat for the run-in spot. Big Bill confirmed my size by telling me to sit down. Joe killed a guy. ROH Dalton Castle is a treasure. And MJF and Kenny put on a classic. The respect was real. 5 stars.
Must have been great to be there."
Bob the Cow says, "I watched the main event hoping it wouldn't go into overtime because I was watching it in a bar on my phone and playing a show with my band. Amazing main event."
But that's another interesting point because I was at Comic-Con, so I couldn't watch it over the weekend. So I was watching Collision this morning, making my notes at home, and then I was like, right, for the main event, I want to get to the office. I want to be like set up and ready so that I'm not distracted and checking because I want to see it. The fact that you're watching it in the shower, the fact that this person's watching it in a bar on their phone before they've got a gig, it feels must see. That's great.
I have had that with NXT TakeOver before. I watched NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 2 in a nightclub in Cardiff. I was there on a friend's stag do.
Amazing.
And we'd gone to this nightclub and I was not enjoying the vibe of this nightclub.
Yeah.
I went to one floor and they were showing the Batman 66 movie.
Brilliant.
Which I quite enjoyed, but then the music was sort of it was distracting me from trying to watch the movie that was on screen. But like I found a sort of a floor that I was onto, which kind of has a bit more of my vibe to it. And I looked at my watch and I was like, I think TakeOver's starting. So I logged onto the building's Wi-Fi.
Amazing.
And I put my headphones in and I watched TakeOver. And I was like, because I was so into NXT and I was like, I just want to watch NXT right now. That's what I'm really into doing. And then they put on Andrew WK Party Hard, and all of a sudden I found my groove. Right? and I knew where I was. Sheldon Jackson said, "That match between MJF and Kenny was so good. I only wish that Kenny would have handed MJF the title afterwards. I'm tired of Bullet Club holding the title till the title match. MGPW did the same thing with Evil and Sonata, now Jay White versus MJF. Sheldon Jackson, I could not agree more.
Yeah.
My only gripe I have with this match is the world title wasn't there.
I haven't liked it at all. I don't like it being around the waist of someone who isn't the champion. I understand why. I get your pitch.
I get it.
It just doesn't work for me, and I think it devalues Jay White eventually having the belt because that entrance with that belt feels great, doesn't it? But I just wish it doesn't work for me.
No.
I'm the same as you. I wish that we'd had that amazing visual of handing him the belt.
I just standing in front and holding the belt up ahead of you while the challenger is staring directly into your eyes. Like there's a visuals that you can't do.
And
if
frustratingly,
you don't have the world title.
Frustratingly, we had that. Like it very much just could have been MJF came out first thing with a chair, bomped everyone on the head, and took the belt and ran with it and had his belt back. Like you could get it back on this show.
He tried to get it back on this show, and I thought, oh, okay.
I was here for it.
You take the title and you can set up that they get the belt back, because like the gimmick of the 8-man tag is if you beat us, you can have the world title back. I get it. I get that Jay White's got it and all this.
But again, with your pitch, like how am I supposed to believe that you'll just give it back if you lose it? Do you know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's like. I understand what you're saying with your pitch, but it doesn't work for me.
Yeah, I agree with Sheldon Jackson on this one. I wish the title belt was there for it. And Aaron Hanrahan has been a member for 25 months in a row, says, "Oi, come here to me. Take nothing away from Kenny, but MJF is a special wrestler. He gets it, doesn't he? Loved this match. Really excited for Full Gear." Well, as am I, actually, which is later this month. But also, we have got one more pay-per-view. We've got a bunch of pay-per-views coming up in November. 3 of them, in fact. But this coming Saturday, it's WWE Crown Jewel. And you can come and join us live and watch it with us in person. Watch WWE Crown Jewel 2023 alongside Luke Owen, Ollie Davis, Tempest, Dan Layton from WrestleTalk, and over 100 other wrestling fans, along with a live version of our board game series, No Holds Barred. We'll be raising money for charity and doing our live reactions to Crown Jewel from the venue, which means you'll have the chance to be on camera and be part of the WrestleTalk live experience. This is the best way to watch wrestling pay-per-views, and tickets are available now. Get your tickets today, and we will see you there to be part of moments like this.
Jay has the spark, has got it in! 1, 2, 3! Jay got it! Jay got it! Jay got it! Jay did 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 it! Oh my God!
Tickets for that show are available in the link in the video description down below, or being put into the live chat by our wonderful moderating team. I'm so excited for Crown Jewel. What a card that show has got. And what a card we have got, because not only are we doing No Holds Barred, which is now sold out, but it's me versus you for the Jam That Championship. I'm going to reclaim my title.
It is.
And I'm going to hold it aloft in front of my people.
I just don't think that you are, mate. I don't know what to tell you. You're full of all this moxie. He's just not gonna. He's just not gonna. The build has been too short.
Well, we kicked off this episode of Collision with Jay White versus AR Fox.
Yeah.
AR Fox back on TV,
right.
Everyone. I really enjoyed some Nigel commentary here, because they recapped Jay White targeting MJF and like stealing the belt and stuff. They said, here's what happened 3 weeks ago when Jay White just attacked MJF and stole his title. And Nigel goes, well, actually, it started 4 weeks ago when MJF and his cronies attacked Jay White backstage.
Yeah. Great stuff.
Crowd were, speaking of the crowd being like mic'd well, like, this crowd was super into the AR Fox comeback. Like, really pumped for an AR Fox comeback.
The spot was great as well, like the comeback spot.
Yeah.
Big fan.
But Jay White got the win with the Blade Runner clean, which I'm very pleased to see, because I think there are a few times where Jay White's been given cheap wins with the help of Bullet Club Gold, which I get is there to put over the story of MJF will be outnumbered.
Yeah.
He's not just facing Jay White, he's facing Bullet Club Gold at Full Gear.
But you can't rely on that, because I mean, it was the problem with one of many problems with the Jinder Mahal thing, was that he wasn't winning clean.
That's what I mean. It's like, so I get why you do that.
Yeah.
But you need to balance that out with, and also he gets clean
He's a force
wins.
on his own right.
He's a force in his own right, so he gets clean wins because he is Jay White.
Yeah.
But also you can't count out that there's these guys at ringside that could cause your cropper. So I like that Jay White got the clean win here without any interference from Bullet Club Gold.
Yeah. Me too. Speaking of commentary, because you mentioned Nigel, poor Kevin Kelly, man.
Yeah.
Like, I read about it. Apparently, Tony Schiavone just said, I really want to do some commentary. So Tony Khan was like, all right, we'll make a 3-man booth for Collision. And then main event comes around and Kevin has to leave so that JR can take a seat. And I'm just like, oh.
Yeah.
What? Oh.
And then JR during that main event said, "This is for the AWA World Championship."
Did he really?
He did, yeah.
Incredible.
I think it might have been during one of the picture-in-picture breaks.
Right.
But it also might... Actually, no, I don't think it was, because I think it came back from a break and he did it because they actually quite smartly had a timer in the corner during the ad
They
break.
did. I spotted that.
They said, like, the ad break for this is only 90 seconds, and it literally had a timer on screen to show you how long was left of the ad break.
So long you've got to go to the loo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was the spot where MJF ran down to try and get his title belt back, but the Goon Squad in Bullet Club Gold sort of stopped that from happening. I enjoyed Nigel McGuinness upset that MJF was trying to steal the title.
Yeah.
I thought that was quite funny. The Acclaimed had a promo backstage promoting that next week they will have been Trios champions for 69 days. Nice. And it turns out that Max Caster is currently being catfished by someone pretending to be MJF, and he may have sent some compromising photos of himself.
I don't understand this, but I'm fine with it.
I don't understand this. I just simply don't understand this.
Is Max Caster gay? Do you remember that meme? There was a is Bruno Mars gay thing that went around it was like 2010. It's the whole thing.
Yeah.
He's a horny boy and so am I, so I get it.
I do not know what his sexual orientation is.
Doesn't matter.
Whatever floats your boat, as long as you're not sinking anyone else's ship. Not one to kink shame. The boys took on the Guns, who won quickly.
Yeah, I'm sure it's standard. But I was thrilled we got a Dalton Castle entrance because I just love him.
Yeah, and there's like a thingy in the ring trying to do the ring introductions while Dalton Castle's talking, and I'm there being like, "Shut up! I'm trying to hear Dalton Castle."
Same. Yeah.
But this was a bit of smart bit of TV in a way, because the Guns are challenging MJF for the ROH tag titles, so they beat an ROH tag team.
Mm-hmm.
Simple, effective stuff. We got the video, only half of the video for the Omega MJF match, which is a spectacular video.
It was a great video.
So good. Like they showed it on Rampage. There's like a 7-minute cut of this promo that's got like the aftermath of the sit-down interviews of Jay White interacting with Kenny Omega and MJF interacting with Don Callis. It's so good. It's exceptional stuff. As is the promo for Danhausen, who will be back. ... at some point.
Yeah.
Lexi interviewed Ryan Nemeth, who was putting over that he's doing a comedy show with his brother Nick Nemeth, the former Dolph Ziggler. But he also tells Lexi, "I'm going to be looking for the services of CJ Perry." So he knocks on her door, and it cuts back to Ryan Nemeth, who does a big
yeah.
And it turns out it was
Could
Miro.
CJ come out to play?
It turns out it was her dad Miro.
Yeah.
Like, "Oi, come in here." And he absolutely batters him behind the door.
Great way to get CJ on the show without having to pay her to be on the show, I suppose.
Up next for the AEW Women's World Championship, it was Hikaru Shida defending against Abaddon in a spooky plunder match. When they announced on Dynamite that it was Abaddon in the 4-way for the number one contendership thing, I was like, all right, so Abaddon's winning then because it's
Halloween.
It's your time for your annual spooky Abaddon title match.
Yeah.
This happens every couple of years. Actually, didn't happen last year because she's been off TV for the last 2 years. Turns out because she's been injured.
Right.
So she's been dealing with this bad injury, but she's now. This isn't just a one-time thing. On the 5 was like,
they're back.
She's just they are just back.
Right.
Like they are just back on TV. Well, I don't know how often they'll be on TV because I think it's a gimmick that has got a certain ceiling.
At most once a show. Like
fair, good point. Very good point. Very good point that it will be at best once an episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think the Abaddon gimmick does have a ceiling.
Well, any spooky gimmick in that way, you could argue has a ceiling, because if you're playing with the supernatural, or you're playing with the idea of what was the Living Dead girl?
It's Living Dead girl, yeah.
You're playing with that kind of thing. I think there's only so far you can take it. Now, if you argue that the women's title is purely mid-card in AEW, you can just go much further. Like, you can have a more leeway with that, because you can do things with your mid-card titles that you wouldn't do with your world title. But yeah, I probably agree. There's pretty much a ceiling.
I think there's a ceiling to it. And like, this was fun because it's like It was a spooky plunder match.
Yeah.
Like, this was a silly hardcore match done for the Halloween season. They did a spot where they rolled out sweets like it was thumbtacks.
Yeah, I liked that
That
spot.
made me laugh.
Yeah.
Sheeta at one point flew on a broom to do a top rope move, which was funny. The finish of this match was Sheeta, dressed as Ada Wong, no less, from Resident Evil 2.
Oh, I wondered what was going on. Yeah.
Yeah, she's a big video game fan.
Right.
Like, her hold gear basically was Tifa from Final Fantasy VII when
Right.
the remake came out. But yeah, she was dressed as Ada Wong here, and Abaddon was cosplaying as Spawn. And the finish of this match was Sheeta put a pumpkin on Abaddon's head and hit the katana, and this crowd went ballistic because they were chanting, "We want pumpkin."
Yeah.
So when Sheeta got the pumpkin out for the finish, this crowd lost their minds.
I think this is where I had a little struggle with it because, like, I also really liked the pumpkin. I also really liked the candy as thumbtacks. I just felt confused by the match because it never really got into gear and it never really decided what it was being. Was it being silly, violent nonsense, a la Memphis Street Fight, a la Viking Rules, or commit and make it real violent, like make it something vicious because it's like Halloween and there's all this plunder, and it never really leaned into either of them. I think it flirted a lot more with the funny side of it, and I think it did that well. I just would have liked for them to really go for it.
The Memphis Street Fights are a very good comparison piece to this because I think the two are quite comparable in how I feel about them. I had a really fun time with this match. Do I want it to be for the Women's World Championship? No.
Right.
I had a really fun time with this street fight.
Eddie
Do I
Kingston.
want Eddie Kingston in
Yeah.
it? Probably not.
Right.
Like, that's kind of where I had a ball with this match.
Yeah.
I had a grand old time. I thought both of them did a lot of really good work in it, and I laughed and I popped and I tee-hee-heed my way through this. Do I want it to be for the Women's World Championship? No.
But that's what I mean. I think if you want to make it for the Women's World Championship, just lean into this even harder, or make it a more violent version. It's just because it wasn't either.
Yeah.
That's what really didn't quite work for me.
And Tony Storm came out afterwards to once again steal Sheeta's spotlight, which is a fun little story. I look forward to it not getting more TV time before the pay-per-view. Promos from Dax Harwood and Ricky Starks putting over their upcoming match. We also had promos from Keith Lee and Shane Taylor. And then Samoa Joe very quickly killed Rhett Titus to retain his ROH TV Championship. He did the walkaway spot, so the match is 5 stars. And they were teasing in this point here the partners for Max, for MJF that is, because Joe offered his services on Dynamite and again offered them on this episode.
Yeah.
I will be your partner, but I want a world title match as recompense.
And it was what they were putting over on commentary, this idea of, like, is that worth it? Like, is it worth giving Joe... And having this conversation about, is it worth giving Joe a title match? Because, yes, you get the protection or the allyship with Samoa Joe, but then you have to defend your belt against Samoa Joe. And they had that conversation right at the end of the match where he did this incredible slam straight into the clutch. And I was sat there going, oh, I just love Joe.
He's so great.
This is what I mean. This kind of wrestling, this fast-paced but hard wrestling is my jam. Yeah. And he is all of it.
Joe's so good.
Yeah.
It's why I fell in love with him in 2005.
Yeah.
It's why I remain in love with him in 2023. I just think the man is fantastic. And I love the idea of... This is why I think I'm quite wed to this idea of the challenges. Because this idea
The
MJ
gauntlet.
is so desperate. Like, oh yeah, I'll promise you a title match. I'll promise you a title match. I'll promise you a title match. Just because he has no other friends.
World end.
Yeah.
World end.
Renee Paquette interviewed QT Marshall and the rest of his cronies. This is actually from Rampage, and it was basically, hey, you've not been on TV for a while. And QT was like, yeah, I haven't. But I'm the AAA champion, and I will defend it against the best luchadors that this company has to offer.
And there's Johnny, what's his name
Johnny
now?
TV.
Johnny TV in the corner doing, like, boy band moves for every part of the promo. I was like, what's going on? What's this?
Yeah, what is this?
What's this?
What is this? They announced that Danielson is injured and will be getting surgery because he broke his orbital bone. And Claudio Castagnoli cut a very scary promo saying that he is going to come after Orange Cassidy and Okada. I love this. So turns out people have been doing detective work. This is not from the Okada match, the injury. So
well, because I was about to... Is it a legit injury?
As far as, I mean, they're certainly playing it up on TV that it is, and he'll be out for the rest of the year.
Christ.
And
he's already on borrowed time.
So what people have said, the videos that people are posting up is that he'd already had like the mark under his eye, which is sort of like a sign of a fractured orbital bone going into the tag match. So what they did is use the tag match to write him off TV and play up the injury, because that sets up Claudio versus Cassidy and Danielson Okada 2 at Wrestle Kingdom.
And it also puts over Cassidy's punches pretty...
Puts over that. The current running theory, going by Twitter investigators basically, is it happened in the Andrade match. Because they have this moment where they clack heads and then they just go straight to the finish.
Right.
And it is like, they clack heads and Danielson goes down, the referee goes to speak to him, speaks to Andrade, and then they just do their finishing sequence.
Now, that would be interesting to me if that's the case, coming in the same week as John Moxley gave the whole conversation about about concussion protocols and all the rest. Because, I mean, first of all, when John Moxley's talking about taking injuries more seriously, you listen. But also putting him out there to wrestle a whole match with, a tag match, I suppose, but with a pretty serious injury like a broken orbital bone is bold.
Yeah, it's the Cody Rhodes Hell in a Cell thing.
Yeah, which I wish he hadn't done it. But...
Yeah, it's like, did he make the injury worse?
Yeah.
Was it really a benefit? Arguably, yeah.
Oh, it ruddy well solidified him, didn't it?
But it made people pump for the comeback. Yeah. And I like that they have used this to sort of like further the Okada Danielson thing, because Okada standing over Danielson and being like, yeah, you keep winning, but I know how to hurt you. Like, Danielson's going to be going into the second Okada match with Okada have broken his arm and broken his eye. Yeah. It's like, what happens now when you're in the Tokyo Dome?
Yeah.
Like, what happens when you're in my house?
It's a fair assessment.
I'm really excited. And also now, because we'll cut to it now because it follows on from the promo. Claudio Castagnoli had this match with Tracy Williams where, I'm not kidding, he did a jump scare.
Yeah.
Tracy Williams would there be like, hello everyone, all of a sudden Claudio, bang, uppercut.
Yeah.
And he demolished this poor lad.
I didn't even get time to get the guy, so I literally just wrote Claudio versus Man because it was over before I had a chance to get my notes out. The most important thing I took from this is it taking place in the KFC Yum Center. My favorite arena in all of America. this Claudio Orange match.
Man.
I mean, yeah, this is great. It's great stuff.
Yeah,
Putting over Claudio as someone who's like, oh, you've just injured my mate. I am literally going to uppercut your head clean off.
And he proper uppercutted this poor lad. Said, I'm stoked for the Orange Cassidy.
Yeah.
And this is like, our squash matches are an old trope that don't really get over. Sometimes it really does work.
Depends how you use it.
Yeah.
Depends how you use it.
Like, did the Guns match get me excited for the ROH title match? No, but I get why they did it.
Yeah.
Like, it makes sense being an ROH tag team. This here, though, genuinely made me want to see.
Yeah.
Like, see Claudio versus Cassidy.
And it's the energy that Claudio brought to it.
It's the promo as well.
Yeah.
Coupling them together. I loved all of this. We'll go back a couple of segments because we skipped over Dax versus Ricky Starks, who, very good match. But really this was more of a backdrop for the angle that followed, which is that the lights go out and House of Black were in the ring. And Dax looked like he had the match won with the pile driver, but Big Bill put Starks' foot on the ropes. So Starks hit a pile driver of his own, but Cash couldn't repay the thing and put his foot on the ropes. So Starks got the win. Nice little finish. And then the lights go out again. And Julia Hart is back. Needle mover. Julia Hart is back on TV. And the House of Black surrounds FTR. But LFI run down to make the save. I didn't expect this from Roosh, Dralistico, and Preston Vance, but I was genuinely really thrilled by it. And I was like, they had this big old brawl, and they stood there staring eyes. I wonder if they've sort of moved the Combat Club out of this story because of Danielson's injury, because obviously they set this up with the Combat Club last week. So just sort of like moving LFI into this place instead, I don't know. It feels like that way.
Well, there was no follow-up on Dynamite, was there? And there was no interaction anyway with or mention of the Bullet Club and House of Black here. So
the Combat Club. You said Bullet Club.
Yeah, BC. It's the same thing with JD McDonough and Judgment Day. There's too many BCs in this company.
Oh, see, someone actually, a few people pointed out some good ways, because that was my 3 words for JD McDonough in the most recent 3 counts was judgment, note-taking, I can't remember what it was.
Nightmare.
But, note-taking nightmare. But someone said, I'll just do TG Day. TJD for the Judgment Day.
Was it BCG, which first of all hilarious, but second of all BCG, BCC. They're very close.
Yeah,
I get confused.
Or doing JDM. Someone else suggested for JD McDonough.
That's tricky. It's tricky.
Yeah.
No one knows how hard we have it. I'm just gonna put it out there. First of all, I really liked here. Wrestlers saying we'll be right back after these short messages. Downlands is the new super kick party. I don't know who. I think it was Montez Ford who started it on SmackDown once, but everyone's doing it now, and you know why not? The line of "you hear that, boys? That's the door closing on FTR." I think Tony Schiavone said, or maybe it was Kevin Kelly. Woof. Like way to really solidify that they are done for a while, and it sold the moment, which is what you want your commentary team to do. And then I didn't expect that music to hit, and so when it did, I was like, "Oh, all right, here we go." Yeah.
Really excited for it. It's great to have them back on TV as well because I've really missed watching Roos wrestle. Lexi interviewed Andrade backstage about CJ Perry and LFI because we saw the CJ Perry thing earlier with Ryan Nemeth and you know, the conversation last week, and now LFI, a group that he has got some history with. But he basically says, like, look, all of that is his business, that's all my business, no one else's. And off he problems. And Lexi also interviewed Chris Statlander, Willow Nightingale, and Sky Goth, who were talking about the tensions between...
Sky Dark Blue.
Sky, very good.
Thank you.
The tensions between Willow and Sky. And Sky says, like, if anything I've got to say to Julia, I'll say myself. And it's like, yeah, it's whatever I like. Crowd went nuts for it.
They really did. It was like, whoa!
Crowd were like, yeah! Sky Blue and Julia Hart! Roar!
This crowd were having a good time.
And I was like, all right.
Yeah.
Cool. Great. The crowd are into it. Go for it. And then the final thing to talk about is MJF and Omega getting ready. And once again, it was Samoa Joe approaching MJF to be like, hey, I'll be your tag partner. All you got to do is scream my name. Oh, Joe. Oh, Joe. So yeah, and that was the show. That was a great edition of Collision. Like, I loved everything that was on it. My issues with the women's title match notwithstanding. And really that's just, take the title a bit more seriously, but I enjoyed the match.
Yeah.
But I just thought this was a tremendous little episode of TV.
It's almost like that match existed in a separate show. Do you know?
Yeah, a little bit. I get
it.
It
feel that's the way. When I've looked back on the show as a whole, that's what it feels to me. I thought they otherwise used their time really well. I really liked the fact that the Guns were just waiting in the ring, like little things like that. Production wise, I quite liked. Claudio's bit was another highlight. Yeah, I thought it was a really effective show. Did well.
I really, really enjoyed this episode, and obviously it's capped off with just
what a match.
What a match.
Yeah.
What a match. We are so spoiled. I have no idea what the nominations are going to be like. I actually wonder when we get to our end of year podcast, because I'm thinking about them a lot because we're about to get into November, which means we are like
Jesus wet, by the way. But
like December is when submissions are going to be starting to come in for the WrestleTalk Podcast Awards. I wonder if we're going to get the most split votes we've had in a while. Usually, like when I look back at the previous couple of award seasons we've done, there's usually like two matches, and it's like a competition between those two matches of what's going to be the number 1 and number 2 position. I think we're going to have an incredibly tight top 10 this year. Certainly a top 5 of like there's like vying back and forth of what's getting the top position.
And within that, there's an awful lot of TV matches.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Like it's not just great pay-per-view matches that we've had across multiple companies, because I think Mike Bailey and Ospreay is definitely going to get some nominations in there. I think Ospreay and Omega from Wrestle Kingdom is going to get a lot of nominations. WWE are going to get a hell of a lot of nominations. Look at those, the tag match, Usos versus Bloodline Civil War match, that's going to get some nominations. I think there's actually the Usos and Kevin Owens, the triple threat at WrestleMania with Gunther,
Sheamus,
Gunther and like Gunther's series of TV matches.
You could make a top 10 out of Gunther.
Yeah, Gunther's series of TV matches. MJF's run as the world champion. Danielson versus Omega Vikingo was this year. Yeah. There's been 2 Omega Ospreay.
Sorry,
matches.
Omega Vikingo, you got bumped.
That's
because
what I mean.
The rest of the year happened and nobody saw it coming.
I genuinely am so... I'm kind of pumped and like giddy with excitement.
Do you know what you might say, Luke, if you were young and hip? The children are eating. The children are eating well tonight.
Well, I mean, I tell you who is eating. Daddy is eating. Daddy is eating well.
Well, we'll work on it.
That is how I'm going to make it awkward. That is how I'm going to take a cool phrase of my cool kids and make it awkward and dad. Daddy is eating when it comes to award season this year.
Stop.
Anyway, let's get into the rest of your No Mega chats, your CMDMs,
Stark remarks.
your Stark remarks.
Or just Ultra Chats.
Yeah.
Let's just have Ultra Chats back.
And Edgar Carrasco, this actually was from the Dynamite show last Thursday. He's been a member for 22 months, by the way. So when I heard Christian's music played, my eyes widened. My first thought was, uh-oh, Flair's got a dead son.
That's the opposite. That's Copeland's gimmick.
Nick Corvello says, hey guys, I feel with Tony interrupting every Shida post-match celebration and a few other women's matches, it's telegraphing that she's going to win at Full Gear. And concerning, since the last thing we need is another Shida one pay-per-view defense title loss.
I'm interested because I've seen a few people talk about Tony being shoved straight into the title sequence and actually this title picture, and this was a great opportunity to have a sort of secondary women's storyline going on at the same time because it's getting so over. Like the argument always being, they're not over, so we're not going to put them on the television. Watch what happens when they get over. That said, I do think this makes sense because Tony turned into this character because she lost it, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So there's a logical consistency there, which I do appreciate. Although, yeah, the hot potatoing of this belt at present does feel a little bit like.
That's where it becomes disjointed. Because really, like, it's a fine story. Yeah. She is stealing spotlight. Like, you know, we want storylines in women's division matches, and they're presenting as a storyline, and your sort of thing is like, I don't want that storyline. Like, I want that storyline, but don't give me that one.
But also, when you know that, like, the reason the belt came off Shida in the first place is because Saraya was good on Good Morning Britain. Like, it's, like, frustrating.
Well, we don't know that. Like, that's my theory.
It probably was.
But, like,
hometown pop at the very least.
Well,
it's we might as well do that.
I thought I had Saraya to win going into it because I was like, I think Saraya's going to win here because it's the Wembley
it's a great story.
But like, Shida probably shouldn't have won the belt in the first place.
Yeah, I agree.
Because they only did that because of that sign in the crowd, and then she just won the belt back because it doesn't matter, I guess.
Yeah.
And you know, we always sort of complain about companies not putting belts on hot acts. Tony's a hot act right now, so I'd put the belt on her.
Yeah, I can't disagree.
Evan Reich says, keep up the good work, boys. Question. Do you think that Nick Wayne's spot with Christian was originally slated for Jungle Boy? I can see the whole story playing out with Cage holding the FTW title instead of the TNT one. No, because so much of it is built around Buddy Wayne.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
And I also don't...
it's actually a very good theory, though.
Also, Luke Perry is Luke Perry still with us? Is Luke Perry
Luke Perry died a few years ago.
Did he?
Yeah,
well, I guess that makes sense as well. Yeah. But also, I mean, I'm curious where the Jack Perry story would have gone, whether it still will. Is there any news on Jack Perry?
Well, Tony's statement on it was he's suspended indefinitely.
Jesus.
Nosh U4 says, hey guys, just wanted to throw a theory into the Who's Under the Devil mask. Could it be Will Ospreay? The Observer reports that all roads lead to AEW. Fletcher being groomed as Don Callis' apprentice. Could it lead to United Empire versus Don Callis family? Jam that jam. Funny enough, Dosh, that's exactly what I said on the Dynamite show on Thursday. Because someone on Fightful had sent it in as their theory that it could be Ospreay. And I said to Ollie, I was like, that could lead to a really good, like, Ospreay showing up, being pissed off at how Callis has treated Carl Fletcher, and you can spin off into United Empire versus the family.
And there's the New Japan connection with Ospreay and Jay White, I suppose, as well. Like, I think this is the long-term booking thing, is it? When you have do you remember the Raw, Anonymous Raw GM?
Do I ever?
There you go.
Crikey.
And
dark days.
It was my huge frustration with that was that I love a good mystery. I love a good reveal. I love a good bit of suspense, but they had no plan.
Nope.
So it never went anywhere. When you come up with the idea of this devil, I would like to think that Tony Khan has a pinboard with 3 faces on it. This is plan A. If that doesn't work out, this is plan B. This is plan C. And they're all viable and they've all got justification. Like a whodunit. It's like, well, any one of you could have been the killer and you've all got like a logic puzzle working it out. And it could be any of them. That's a really nice one for sure. But if Ospreay decides to go to TNA, for instance, like, you know.
We've got backup plans that we could do
exactly,
instead.
Yeah.
I would.
It's a cool story. Swerve is the other one I've heard a lot of people talk about.
Yeah, I'd love it to be Swerve. I'd love it to be Ospreay. There's actually like a good slew of people. Though we had someone interestingly sent it in to me, like, what if it was Sami Callihan? And I love the idea of it being Sami Callihan, but there's also the possibility of a backlash to it being Sami Callihan, because that is thrusting him into a main event scene that the crowd might not be ready to accept him in.
Yeah.
But like, they would accept a Will Ospreay in that role. They would accept a Swerve Strickland in that role. It's all about the presentation of someone on TV before you're going into it. So you could end up with a Dark Order scenario, early doors Dark Order. When they revealed Dark Order and gave this big push, the crowd rejected it. Might not work out that way. I would love it to be Sami because I love him, but that you need to have the right reveal with this character. Matt Hennessy here says, I agree, guys. The tribalism sucks. Both AEW and WWE are now at their very best. They both had black clouds over their heads with the Punk drama and Vince forcing his way back into creative, but with the Punk firing and Endeavor removing Vince from creative and giving Hunter all of the control, both companies are at their best. The crowds win with the behind-the-scenes staff win, and most importantly, the talent win. We don't hear about backstage fights in AEW. When the merger finalized with Endeavor, Vince lost ownership and majority voting power, and he can't force his way back into creative as his boss Ari Emanuel has the majority voting power and can use it. Oh, Matt, I know you like to send a lot. I think you could truncate a lot of this down. I would say to you as a way to save yourself a few pennies. The point I'm trying to make is that seeing the top two companies being the best and not having to worry about behind-the-scenes drama is great. Having choice in wrestling is great. That's why I never understand tribalism. I want the competition between WWE and AEW to lead to TK and Hunter giving us the best shows, because that way we all win, and that's what we all want at the end of the day.
I mean, I think there's been the Black Cloud thing. It's been a tricky several months, and I don't think it's fair to lay all of the blame at Punk's feet. You know, there was an awful lot of stuff going on. The leaking of stories. As a Man United fan, a couple of years ago, we had a really bad locker room energy where there was a lot of feeding the stories about the manager and feeding the stories out to journalists, and that's negativity. And all of those stories, you know, I don't think it's fair to put it all at Punk's feet. That said, when the creativity has been a bit dry, it's almost forced the hand a little bit and pulled something out. And I think they're setting themselves up for a really good run for the end of the year, which is important for them to do, because as we get to the end of the year, we go into WWE's traditionally best 3 months of the year.
I also think that a lot of people overlook something with AEW and their last 18 months. Actually, with the last almost 2 years. I look at 2022 as a whole. It was injury plagued.
Oh yeah.
They had a mess of a title situation because they all of a sudden, it was the year of the interim champion. TNT had a run of interim champions because of injuries. The world title had a run of interim champions because of injuries, and then one of them got suspended. The women's championship had a run of interim championships. And doing that devalued a lot of the titles and made people lose interest in those titles. They've actually spent the last year rebuilding, certainly with the world title, perhaps less so with the women's title because it has hot potatoed around. And the TNT title is rebuilding those titles and re-establishing them, making them feel prestige again. I think what Orange Cassidy did with the international title is make that feel like a prestige championship. Funny enough, that's then fallen into injuries happening and stuff, and then now they'll probably have to try and rebuild that title to make it feel big again. But I've been listening to The Death of WCW because I've done Halloween Havoc 97.
The Alvarez book.
The Alvarez and R.D. Reynolds book.
Yeah.
Shout out to R.D. Reynolds on that one as well. And I've been listening to that because I've done Halloween Havoc 97 for WrestleTalk Extra, which will be going out tomorrow. And I'm just trying to put myself back into that 97, 98 mind space. And the start of the 98 chapter is all about how when you are hot, you can do no wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You can put on bad shows. You can have champions be presented poorly. You can have dire TV product. You can do bad house shows with bad creative. But because you're a hot product, you can do no wrong. However, each of those things will slowly chip away. You just chip away, and all of a sudden you find yourself you're a cold product. When you're a cold product, you can do nothing right.
Yeah.
So you've got to work extra hard to build yourselves back up into being a hot product. 2022, and like using WCW as the example, 98 is the chipping away period. And actually, tail end of 97 is as well, with the botching of Hogan and Sting and this and the other. People look at Starrcade 97, but Piper beat Hogan in October, which would devalue the Sting match anyway. So you chip away. You're putting on bad shows, bad pay-per-views, you're making bad choices. Come to end of 98, all of a sudden WCW, which at the end of 97 was such a hot product that they were turning away people at buildings. 98, end of 98, when you get Starrcade and you get to 99 with the Finger Poke of Doom. Cold product that no one is into anymore. And then 99 and 2000 is them desperately scrambling to bring people back in and not being able to do it. And that leads, unfortunately, to the company closing down. 2022 is AEW's 97, which is, and 98, which is they just had things being chipped away and chipped away and chipped away. All of the hotness they had in 2021 with Punk, Cole, Danielson, and Minoru Suzuki and Ruby Soho all like debuting on that same show and all of this, and like a string of incredible pay-per-views, a string of the best television that they were doing. 2022 was a year where it was just chip away. And here we are in 2023 where they are now clawing back to try and get to that position, and they can't sell the tickets for it because it's a cold product.
Yeah.
And like, so yeah, you can look at the Punk drama and everything like that, and it is a big part of that. But I think we ignore a lot of the other stuff that has hurt AEW product as a whole. Sorry, I spoke a lot there.
I find it interesting. It's also a relatively new company, and Tony Khan is new at this job, right? And I think I give Tony Khan a hard time a lot, often because he's a billionaire, so I'm punching upwards. But also because you are the CEO of the company, you take on all the booking responsibilities. If you want to talk a big game, as he likes to do, as he should do. I'm gonna hold you to account because it's kind of my job.
Yeah.
So, we talk about it, and it's interesting that period that you're talking about there, where you do have the injuries to the champion, so we have to do an interim champion, then we have this interim. That's you making the best of a bad situation. You figuring out what to do in your teething problems, where you booked out your first 2 years. Anyone can plan 2 years out with no lead in, and then it go really well if you stick to the script. When things start coming your way that change that script, you've got to figure out how to book on the fly. You've got to figure out how to make things work. That's why I'm talking about your plan A, plan B, plan C with the devil, because otherwise the wheels are gonna start to fall off, and that's when the chips start chipping away. These few years have been very much like a teething thing. Hopefully he's learned from you throw things at the wall, see what sticks. Not everything is gonna work. Not everything is gonna sing. Sometimes you'll accidentally strike gold. The Omega MJF match here, where he messed up the nip up, is such a microcosm example. They found a way to make that part of the flavor that actually added to the storyline. And more and more, I think that's gonna work. Also, they've got. I don't know this, but it feels like they've got unlimited funds, so they're not going to go the way of WCW.
They're on a network that likes them.
There it is.
Because the problem that WCW had
became poison
at the end of it was that it was a company that was just losing money hand over fist. It was losing like $450 million a year. So Jamie Kellner comes in and is like, "What? I mean, A, I don't like wrestling, but B, why are we funding this?
Yeah.
Like, let's put those funds elsewhere. I don't want this on the TV network. Get rid of it."
And then when Vince wants to do a WCW show, none of the networks will take it because the brand is poison.
Yeah.
Like, it's, this is a whole other conversation, but it's so interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
it's learning from history.
And if we can see both companies at their best, oh no.
Yeah, pretty much. York Master said, "I half expected the title to be inside his jacket. I can't remember the last time a stolen title angle lasted this long. Then it hit me. They're teasing us because Jay won't be world champion for a while."
Yeah, I mean, it feels like I don't think he is going to be world champion for a while. I think you're right. I think this goes all the way to world end.
Yeah.
And if MJF resigns, he'll probably hold the belt even longer, or maybe it'll be someone else, by which point you've got to continue to build that title. You want to continue to make, it's always what ends the impressive streak that follows.
The Derpies of Derp here says, "Well, I love Luke's idea of Max's teammates. I want it to be the Acclaimed, if nothing else than to see MJF and Caster be buddies on TV, because genuinely they seem like great friends. You can find some more videos of them on YouTube just having a ball." I quite like as I said earlier, I've kind of fancy booked this idea in my head, and as we all know, I'm the king of fancy bookings at this table. So I've kind of fancy booked that idea, but I'm not saying that if it doesn't happen, I'm going to be really mad about it, because if it's the Acclaimed, it'll be a great time. I saw you and Michael Oku exchanging words with each other on the old Twitter machine last night.
Look, some scars burn deep. What's the phrase? I don't know. But look, an elephant never forgets, and I'm currently in my elephant era, so...
Fifth Pillar here said, "I was relieved when MJF did not end up calling out Samoa Joe for help in the main event. When Joe offered his help early in the show, I thought for sure that was the finish." This next one here, I feel like this is going to cut deep.
I read it
with Dan Layton. Sorry, but my roommate just said, the guy on the right, Dan,
Hi.
looks like that guy from college who was playing the bongos and sold me weed. Also, I think the devil is Jack Perry, and the reveal is going to be in Chicago in November.
I like the second half of that message.
Because this dates back to the Raw days when... remember when Matt Riddle...
I remember?
Just be backstage with bongos.
Backstage, middle of the ring.
And that was his character.
His character was a stoner who had bongos, a man-child. I'm supposed to believe this was a former cage fighter, and he's walking out of the ring and he's holding a pair of bongos, and his whole... Smoking weed is not the same thing as having a personality. I'm sorry, it just isn't.
Urkto here has pointed out something we mentioned earlier. That's the argument of like why Dynamite did a bad number. News was happening last week, and as I said, there's a lot of factors that could be at play, but you can literally look at data and see. Yeah. As soon as the MJF stuff finished, a lot of people tuned out. Also, just a very brief point on the news. The news is a lot at the moment, so sometimes people dip and take their time elsewhere and look for comfort and all other things. So just hope everyone's okay and doing that. Hannah here says, first time chatting, I loved this episode, and I start my dream job tomorrow as a support assistant in the NHS. I haven't got any pans to bang. Oh, yeah. We're bringing Thursdays to Mondays. Was it Thursdays? Yeah, it was Thursdays. All the days bled into one. I just waited till the noise started and then I joined in. Thursdays, wasn't it? We used to do clapping for the NHS. Yeah, on a Thursday. Yeah, well, it started off really fun and then it started getting really catty. I mean, the best thing about it was people clapping, just looking down the street. Who else has come out? One time I went to the shop forgetting what time it was and walked down the street, and I at this point was there were flat blocks opposite each other, people on their balconies all clapping, and I was like, thank you so much. Thank you. The milk was running out, but I managed to get one. Thank you. Man, what a weird time. I know. There's big collective fever dream. Can I tell you something truly hideous? What's that? Sometimes I miss it. Enforced quiet time when I didn't have to see anybody. Fabulous. I did jigsaws. It was great. I did jigsaws and watched Now You See Me. That's what I did. Every day. Travis Mangtelo has been in Memberg for 25 months in a row, said, what is your favorite AEW match ever? Oh, boy. Recency bias is tricky when you ask me that quickly, but the first thing that comes into my head is the hour-long tag team match, because I love a tag team match. So we have got an upcoming episode of TLC. Is our top 10 AEW pay-per-view matches. Yeah. So maybe I'll hold off. And I'll have the reveal on that episode. But if I'm looking at like TV, like Omega Vikingo was incredible. Like the first Nick Jackson Ray Phoenix match, which was early doors, was great. Omega versus Pac was so good. Man, there's been some like superb matches. Yeah, that hour-long tag match. Actually, the MJF and Punk match in Chicago when MJF beats him twice is superb. Yeah. The 6-man tag when it's MJF and FTR versus Punk, Sting, and Darby, and MJF and Punk don't touch the entire match is sublime. And I think the interesting thing with a question like this is when you take all of these things, all of these matches, all of these examples, and you sort of line them next to each other, the collective build, 6 minutes. Johan here said, who does Joe think he is? Gimmick infringement alert for Joe Hendry. Say his name and he'll appear. God, you can tell how over TNA is at the moment. TNA is huge in the UK. Bizarro Big L says, Sean Dean is a wild card. I don't see it happening, but he has the infantry, Andrade and Darius. This is obviously about the Who's Under the Mask. All similar size guys, and the captain has 2 wins over MJF. Not a big name, but a catalyst for chaos, possibly. I'll be honest, if it is revealed that it's the captain, Sean Dean, I think that will backfire massively. Yeah. That will be the firm, where I said, like, I always used to say with the firm, everyone loves a trier, and we bemoan companies for not trying new things. They are trying a new thing. Is it getting over? No. But at least they're trying it. And we tried it for a bit, and it stopped getting over, and it didn't get over at all, and then they stopped doing it. He takes the mask off, and it's Tony Khan. It's me, MJF! Honestly, if they take the mask off, it's me all along! If they take the mask off and it's Tony Khan, it'll be the greatest thing that this company has ever done. It will be the greatest. Everyone clip this out now. Dan called it on the 30th of October, 2023. The devil
Devil is Tony Khan.
Tony Khan.
And then he starts his own on-screen villainous.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's it. That's the only answer I now want.
Who's the king of fantasy booking now?
Someone out there, TV matches. God, Danielson Omega was a TV match. It's a Grand Slam.
Jesus, it was.
I watched that in a hospital corridor. It was the day that my kid was born.
Oh.
I watched.
So it was a good day.
I watched the day after. Well, I mean, yeah, but it was also a scary time because my wife had some complications.
Right.
So it was taken in for.
So you were like, "Now's the time." Sorry, love. I'm off to watch.
Well, it was still during COVID times.
Right.
So I wasn't allowed to go in with
I
her.
see.
So I just had to sit in the corridor with all of the other expecting dads.
Nice bit of a distraction.
While we just sat there on chairs, not knowing what was going to come next, and no one would tell me anything. So I just put my headphones in and I watched Omega Danielson.
This is what I'm like. Joking aside, this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
though.
it was a genuinely really good way to get my mind off things.
Yeah.
My brother was sort of like checking on me, making sure I was all right, but I was like, honestly, I'm fine. Like I don't know what the situation is, but I'm watching wrestling and it's making me feel better.
We seek comfort in things like this. Like I was crushed over the weekend with the loss of Matthew Perry, but like a large part of the reason why is because that's the kind of comfort energy. And like I was lucky enough to meet so many of you who were at the Comic-Con and said hello, thank you very much for doing so, who will talk about how the comfort we provide. And it's like such a lovely thing. So when the news does get a lot, this is what I'm saying. Start the tribalism, touch grass, wrestling's fun. Let's just enjoy this together, you know?
Just ended the poll of what people thought of this episode. 88% thumbs up with 8% in the middle.
Yeah, well, those 8% hate fun.
Also, it was over 90%, so that's a late surge of people, either with a thumbs down or in the mid, to push it to 88, although it's a DeLorean score, so that's good.
There you go.
That's what we've got time for on this edition of the podcast. Thank you all so much for joining us. We are back tomorrow with... Have you seen the lineup for tomorrow's Raw?
Yes, I have seen the lineup for tomorrow's Raw.
I'm just going to quickly go through this now.
Let's do it.
Because you've got Rollins versus JD McDonough. You've got Dom versus Ricochet. You've got Gargano DIY versus Imperium. Natalia and Chelsea Green in a trick or street fight. And... Alpha Academy versus the Creed Brothers.
They've done an open challenge and the Creed Brothers have accepted it. And by all accounts, this is the beginning of the Creed Brothers making the main roster.
Yeah, Meltzer said on Wrestling Observer Radio being like, oh yeah, it's this is the call-up.
Yeah.
They're just going to start on the main roster now.
Yeah. Hey Luke. The children are eating.
And Daddy is eating. Thank you all so much for watching. We're back tomorrow with a full review of Monday Night Raw. Enjoy the show, everyone. Get your tickets to come watch us live this coming Saturday at the Long Arm Pub and Brewery when we watch Crown Jewel together. Until then, I've been Luco in DAD. That has been the Professor, the Truth, the Jam That Champion, Dan Layton. Jam that jam.